Welcome back. Bryan Suits, Dark Secret Place, will join us with his thoughts on Afghanistan as a guy who spent some time fighting people like this on our behalf on the Todd Herman Show. Todd Herman Show, my friend Bryan Suits joins us. Bryan from DarkSecretPlace.com spent a little bit of time fighting people like the Taliban, so has a little bit to say about Afghanistan. Bryan, how swimmingly do you think things have gone?
You know, I'm an eternal optimist. I think there's room to bounce back. This is, here's the thing. I as a young kid, I do have a living memory. I grew up in Hawaii before we moved to Port Angeles, and I do remember the shockwave of the fall of Saigon in 1975 because it was an immediate effect in Hawaii. Because an initial wave of refugees came to Hawaii, but there, in all honesty, there was not a seismic effect on, the geopolitics of the world. Okay, but we're not in that bipolar world anymore. What happened over the past couple months is seismic because we lost a significant surveillance and reconnaissance base in the form of Bagram, and now we're out of Afghanistan completely. So you just can't overstate this. And all you got to do is read Global Times from China. They took 24 hours to process this because the party was thinking about how huge their win was. And then yesterday they came out with an editorial warning Taiwan. Choose your friends wisely. Look what these guys just did. And there you go. There's your secondary effect, kids.
Right. So this is the Chinese Communist Party saying, hey, here's what the party in the United States just handed us. And to say to Taiwan, hey, don't count on them. When we come for you, they can't do anything. They're not able to. They don't have the guts. They don't have the leadership. That's a geopolitical position, and I'd like to explore that more. I want to ask you, Joe Biden said we plan for every contingency. I haven't served, so I look at this, and you have served. You've been in the field. Is there any sign to you, Bryan Suits, that he planned for any contingency?
No, and I know that the military did because they had been from a certain level, like captain and above or major and above. They had been reporting just like we did in Iraq. Hey, these guys are not an army in any familiar way, shape, or form. Their effect against the enemy will probably be nil. They do celebratory fire instead of conserve their ammunition. They shoot each other in the foot. They're not an army, and so that was done in Afghanistan as well. Everyone in Afghanistan that I know who trained the ANA, the Afghan National Army, said no, just no. They come to the table without the basic tools to come together. And that was reported up. It was reported up. Everybody in uniform knew this. The intelligence community, it's not their job. I'm for once, I'm going to let them off the hook. I never reported to the CIA on the progress of the Iraqi company that the Washington Army National Guard was training. I never had to. The CIA couldn't care less. It was up the Army chain of command. And so Milley should have handed his resignation to Biden on the way to the podium yesterday, and right behind him, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, because for everyone, for all you listeners to understand the scale of what happened over the past couple of weeks, Lloyd Austin was the commander of CENTCOM. He was the commander of Central Command just 3 years ago. He saw the PowerPoint, and he knew that the ANA was nothing but this pencil-whipped paper tiger fiction, this landing pad for M16s and night vision. And so we had this set of criteria, and it was, albeit as the second company of the 454th Kandahar Infantry Regiment achieved U.S. Army marksmanship standards. And it's like, well, okay, 70% is a pass. Yes, check the box. But they only show up on payday, so they'll only do marksmanship training on the day they get paid. And that's what was happening, up and down. And here's the other party that's not being held responsible. The media. Because the media doesn't hire people with military experience. So they send people like Martha Raddatz from ABC News. They send her downrange to Kabul. She's met by a colonel who shepherds her around, and she only goes to the outposts and the fobs that where the colonel wants to go, and because he doesn't like leaving the wire. And so she goes out and she sees some model Afghan National Army company training, and they're doing push-ups, or they're doing on an obstacle course or some Al Qaeda crap, and then she comes back and she says, "Yeah, start training hard." She wouldn't know bad training if she saw it. There's an enormous gap, and this started after the Vietnam War. Vietnam was covered by a lot of former service members. And that's part of the reason that journalists used to call BS on Vietnam. Well, so, pardon, my dogs are wrestling in the background. But that's part of the problem with 2021 and 2001 is that there's minimal military experience in civilian media. And I've tried to bridge that gap and just sort of be a nice guy and explain to people that's actually not what's happening. They're bamboozling you there. They don't want to hear it. It's really weird. It's like putting me in charge of medical on the medical desk, or
Wait a minute,
surgery task or something.
Wait a minute. That's my gig. I do that. That's my medical thing. I studied that. So let me ask you this then, Brian. How is it that with the availability of AR-15s with chainsaw attachments? Because I learned that from CNN, that the ARs you guys use in the field have chainsaw attachments. Even that couldn't help. Is that what you're talking about with this media that's completely uneducated, or on the side of it?
Oh, absolutely. When you see them covering any sort of Second Amendment issue or the evil black rifle, that like only the AR-15, is the only weapon that can kill 8 people in nearly 3 minutes or whatever. Yeah, it's just the same level of superficial, sort of vacuous knowledge. But I mean, here's the thing: you talk to anyone, or like listen to my show at thedarksecretplace.com, or talk to anyone who's in Afghanistan, and they'll tell you, "Oh, these guys are worthless." And you know what? Here's the other scandalous part of this that nobody in the media is talking about, but on the Todd Herman show, and it's that when we sent cultural assessments on our PowerPoint and said it is this cadre's assessment that these guys are incapable of coming together as a cohesive unit in the American fashion, that got suppressed or edited or just took out of that PowerPoint deck because no one wanted to hear it. Because that was the elephant in the room about Afghanistan is no, these are not a people. They call themselves Afghans, but they call themselves Afghans in 30 different languages. They've never come together.
Yeah.
And that's nobody wanted to hear that. No one in the American Army. And by the way, that's part of the reason Lloyd Austin is where he is, because he's one of the guys that would suppress that stuff. Plus, he makes you look good when he's standing next to you. He's a modern day Colin Powell.
Yeah, at least he's got that Raytheon stock, and I do hope that vests for him through this period of time.
Yeah,
maybe we'll see a stock
that's
increase.
True. He took a time out from CENTCOM command to Raytheon board for a couple of years.
A couple mil here or there. That's the stuff that's reported. We got about 1 minute 20 left with Brian. So that's the geopolitical. That's the media. I have to ask you, how do you guys, when you're out in the field and you've been, pardon the French, but you've had a screwdriver driven into your soul, how do you continue to protect people? How do you do that?
I suddenly understand a lot more about your typical Vietnam vet. I suddenly do, except that none of us were drafted. We all volunteered. We all walked through the door. We all said, "Send me in harm's way." We went in harm's way. But this Afghanistan thing is such an own goal, such a self-own. It's astounding. If I never served in Afghanistan, I would be really pissed. Luckily, Iraq still limps along. It's a democracy, believe it or not.
800-465-8770. Bryan Suits, darksecretplace.com. Todd Herman Show continues.